Now, as ever, many couples aspire to get married, expecting the famous fairy tale ending, and they lived happily ever after. It seems incredible, but that idea of a total, faithful, and exclusive love for life isn't dead. Today, it has a special draw for young people.
There's a poll published in 2013 on the desires of young people between 16 and 29 years old around the world that says those youths want to form a family. They want to have relationships that last a lifetime. And why is that? Surely because this is the generation of youths that in all of human history has been most marked by separations, divorces, the breakdown of the family. And these youths have lived through the consequences, the suffering of those families torn apart. And without judging anybody, these young people today want a family life.
Ces jeunes réclament aujourd'hui une vie familiale.
This aspiration, so human and natural, faces gigantic obstacles, a culture and a market that trivializes sex.
I think sex, it's not something that should be treated lightly. It's not like buying an iPad or an iPhone. It's much more fundamental. After all, people want to be trusted. They want to be with each other for life. And they expect people to be loyal to them.
The pressure of an eroticized environment leads many to seek that happiness in cohabitation. Is that the path to lasting love?
We know that when people live together, they consider themselves to be friends, and they delay marriage for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. This group of people are much more likely to divorce once they are married. So living together doesn't necessarily prepare you for marriage. It can actually destroy marriage.
That we found that was, I think sort of striking for us was that really particularly women who had more sexual partners prior to marriage were more likely to report lower marital quality. And other research suggests they're more likely to get divorced.
Having a stable family life is crucial for the well-being of one's society. When we are looking at numbers of children, for instance, who are involved in social behavior, including delinquency, and a large segment of these children come from either dysfunctional families or families who are one-parent families, but families who are actually giving their children the need for love, support, and appropriate care are actually children who are in a lot of ways kept out of problems, social problems such as addictions.
So is marriage the best path for finding happiness?
There's a Harvard study that shows that married couples enjoy greater levels of happiness than couples who aren't. And that ends up resonating in the children and finally resonating in society at large.
Married parents tend to be much happier than single parents. And so having that context of two partners who are prepared to work together on a common project, that is having kids, rearing kids and whatnot, is on average I think an easier undertaking than parenting on your own. We see that people who have their first kid or their children in cohabiting relationships without the benefit of marriage are more likely to break up. Part of the idea of responsible parenthood is to, get that marriage, get that ring on your finger before you go ahead and have your kids. We also talk about a success sequence in the United States, and that young adults who, get their education, get a job, get married, and then have kids in that sequence are more likely to succeed both financially, but also they're more likely to enjoy family stability.
Thus, family stability and happiness is based on the faithful love of a father and a mother. The problem today is that, at least in the West, the father figure tends to be relegated.
The role of the father is ignored, and sexual alterity is considered unnecessary in the family, or the presence of a father and a mother is considered unnecessary. This is again gender ideology, because it thinks of the father and the mother as identical. They're interchangeable. We can do without the father, but you can't forget that even if the woman doesn't need a father or a man, the children do. the father liberates the child from the excessive love of the mother, as we sometimes tend to get swallowed up by love. We drown in love.
In other societies, the opposite is the case. The father dominates and the woman submits. This is changing in Africa thanks to the Christian ideal of marriage, as well as, in part, to natural methods.
I think this is changing and changing very fast, and indeed the natural family planning can only bring dialogue to the table. She plays a complementary role in the marriage, and indeed this is what God meant when he said that the woman was to be the companion of the man, a companion of love, a companionship of sharing, and a companionship that indeed bears fruit. And the fruit is actually intimacy that goes beyond the sexual, beyond human understanding, that could only help them experience marriage as God intended it.
For a marriage to last and love to grow, one must understand the meaning of the sexual act.
You know, what the sexual act means, it means a complete self-giving, mutual self-giving between the spouses. And when you hold back a very important part of yourself, which is your fertility, you're belying that mutual self-giving. So there isn't any longer a complete giving and receiving of the spouses to one another. It means that the act which should be unifying your total comprehensive marital commitment really isn't doing so, because you're leaving out something that's essential.
Person, if one or the other senses that you've married the other just for the sake of using them as a sexual object, then it comes through in everything else too, because whenever you think about complete gift of self, it doesn't stop at the door to your bedroom. It means that in everything you do, including in your sexuality, you're thinking about what you can do which is best for the other person and for the common good of your relationship and for the family.
Look, I love you and I want the pleasure that you give me, but I don't want the consequences of the relationship. That makes it incomplete, and I think that may somehow destroy that deep love that has to grow throughout the lifetime of the man and the woman united in matrimony.
Sex without commitment? Isn't that selfish? Love is much more than pleasure or feeling. It doesn't seek one's own happiness, but that of the person you love. And that means effort, sacrifice.
It's really special for us to be here at the Trevi Fountain because, of course, it's fun. You have to throw your coins in. It's what you have to do when you're at the Trevi Fountain. And in the end, of course, marriage isn't about throwing your coins in and hoping for the best. It's something that you have to constantly be giving effort to, but it is a joyful and a beautiful, beautiful kind of effort. And wow, the rewards are incredible. Certainly, you have to learn to sacrifice some of your wants, because it's not all about you anymore after you're married. But there's something so beautiful also that comes out of the ability to sacrifice for another, because it's such an incredible way to show love.
And then, procreation. Because having children is the most palpable of the shared dreams of two people who love each other. And in a shared free act, they can communicate love, give pleasure, and give life.
I think that being so open to life, every time you unite with your wife, is a very special thing. Because being so open to life, you're becoming, or there's a chance that this time you're becoming, a co-creator with God Himself.
That often implies living in abstinence in matrimony. What can motivate us to do so, apart from religious considerations?
Why is abstinence a good thing? Because it's good. Because in sexuality, the most important thing is knowing the other person and being able to give yourself to them. So if I'm accustomed to personal self-control and sexual self-control, I'm more able to give myself than otherwise. And sexuality in these conditions implies conversation. It implies communication. It implies knowing how to wait. It implies postponing gratification for a greater good. All of this improves the quality of love, but it also improves the quality of sexual relations.
These ideas, so new to some, where were they learned? In premarital courses. These include, in some countries, the teaching of natural methods. This is the case in the U.S.
And we do a survey every year of our dioceses, and we can say that in marriage preparation, natural family planning education is represented. In addition to that, we've seen in many dioceses an emphasis on educating in the theology of the body that Saint Pope John Paul II has given to us. A lot of young people, especially young priests, are still very excited about that, and they want to get involved in spreading the truth about human sexuality as God made it, and natural family planning as a real tool for married couples to use to live out responsible parenthood.
But in other countries, and in many dioceses, the benefits of natural methods for Christian marriage are almost unknown.
But I can tell you that in those dioceses where they do have a strong NFP ministry, for example, in the Diocese of Phoenix in Arizona, you see a lovely progression of generations of family who have been influenced by living according to God's plan.
It's an opportunity to have people recognize the greatness that our Creator calls each of us to be as individuals, and the wonderful gift that He's given us in the vocation of marriage, and that we have an opportunity to help one another reach heaven and to participate in that amazing creative experience of actually creating new life.
What is my ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is to get my wife to heaven, to be completely, totally fulfilled by that continuous, good, lasting happiness that will never go away, that can only be given to us by God.
So we think that by combining both the science and the underlying philosophical approach, which is a fundamental Christian belief that, you know, we're made in the image and likeness of God, and we're called to act as God acts, and God acts by loving, not using one another. And so we differentiate love versus use to make sure that couples begin to understand it. All of us are fallen. We all fall short of what we're called to be.
Married people are called to undissolvable matrimony, uniting and procreative. Is that a fairy tale? Or maybe, as Pope Francis affirms, it belongs to God's dream for the salvation of humanity. The difference is that fairy tales don't come true. Don't come true. But God's dreams do.